There's been a new development in the ongoing conflict between Boko Haram and ISWAP, two notorious militant groups operating in Nigeria and the surrounding Lake Chad basin. A new video surfaced where Boko Haram claims victory over ISWAP, and that's raised a lot of eyebrows. Now, you might be wondering why this is a big deal. Let me break it down for you. In the video, Boko Haram claims that they have defeated ISWAP in several battles that have been taking place in the northeast, particularly around the Lake Chad region. The video is essentially a piece of propaganda, something that groups like Boko Haram use to rally their supporters and show off their supposed strength. But behind that, there is real fighting happening on the ground. And that's what makes this claim significant. Boko Haram's resurgence in the region isn't something we can just brush off. Now, who exactly are these groups? Boko Haram, as we know, has been a thorn in Nigeria's side for over a decade. They're infamous for their brutal attacks, kidnappings, and the attempt to impose their radical ideology on the population. ISWAP, on the other hand, is a more recent development. It broke off from Boko Haram several years ago, and over time it has become a more organized and structured group, aligning itself with ISIS. Their goal? To control territory in the Lake Chad basin and beyond, which includes parts of Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. This fighting between Boko Haram and ISWAP isn't just some back and forth though. Both groups have been battling for dominance in the region. And while the Nigerian military has been heavily focused on ISWAP in recent years, it looks like Boko Haram is trying to reassert itself. That's why this claim of victory is so important. It shows that Boko Haram is still capable of causing chaos and could even be gaining ground. This isn't just some ideological battle anymore. It's about control of territory, resources, and power. The most recent clash between these two groups occurred around the Lake Chad area, a region known for its remote and often lawless nature. The fighting has been intense, with a report suggesting that at least 100 militants were killed. Now, whether those numbers are accurate or not, that's beside the point. The real issue here is that both groups are fighting over the same territory, and that has consequences for the people living there. Civilians are always caught in the middle when these groups fight. People who live in these areas are constantly displaced, losing their homes, livelihoods, and sometimes their lives. In fact, it's not just the fighting between these two groups that's dangerous, it's the fact that they've been fighting for so long without any real resolution. The longer this goes on, the more entrenched the violence becomes. But let's get into the bigger picture. What does this fighting mean for the Nigerian government, for regional stability, and for us as citizens? If Boko Haram is really making a comeback, that could mean more resources will need to be shifted toward tackling them. That's going to take attention away from ISWAP for a while. But is this a good thing? It could be, in a sense, because if Boko Haram is focused on fighting ISWAP, they might stop attacking civilian targets as much. But then again, they might just redirect their focus toward the military, making it even more dangerous for everyone. What this could also mean is a shift in the balance of power. ISWAP has had the upper hand in recent years, but if Boko Haram is starting to win battles, they could take over some of the areas ISWAP once controlled. That would be a huge change for the region. And it's not just about the groups fighting each other. It's about the Nigerian military, international forces, and local communities responding to this shift. The Nigerian military has been under pressure for years to get control of the situation, and now they'll have to adjust their strategies once again to deal with the evolving threat. It's not just the Nigerian government that's going to be affected here. The entire region, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, has been drawn into this conflict. These countries have been working together through multinational forces to fight these groups, but they're going to have to rethink their approach as well. If Boko Haram is resurging, it could mean more coordination between these countries to tackle the problem head on. The next important thing to note is the impact on the local communities. Imagine living in a place where one day your village is fine, and the next, militants are coming through either fighting each other or attacking your home. That's the reality for people in the Lake Chad basin. Farmers, fishermen, families, everyone is affected. People are fleeing their homes trying to find safety, but there's nowhere to go. The local economy is decimated, and access to basic necessities like food and healthcare becomes even more difficult. At the end of the day, whether Boko Haram is truly victorious over ISWAP or not, the fact remains that both groups are still a massive threat to the region. And as long as the Nigerian government can't get a solid handle on these groups, the situation will continue to deteriorate. But here's something to think about. We often hear about the violence, the bombings, the killings. But what about the people behind these groups? The fighters, the leaders? It's easy to label them as evil or as the enemy. But what drives them to this point? What's the root cause? Is it simply radical ideology, or is there more to it? This is something we often forget to consider in the bigger picture. We talk about Boko Haram and ISWAP like they're monolithic forces. But they're made up of individuals, people with their own stories, motivations, and sometimes a sense of desperation. One thing that might be surprising to some is that there are fighters from all walks of life. Some of them may have been coerced, some joined out of frustration, and some might even be there because they genuinely believe in the cause. The truth is, understanding these dynamics is crucial if we ever hope to see peace in the region. Simply defeating the groups isn't enough. We need to understand why people join them in the first place, and that takes more than just military action. It requires addressing the root causes: poverty, lack of education, and poor governance. As we were discussing, while Boko Haram's victory over ISWAP could seem like a shift in power dynamics, we have to acknowledge that this is still part of a broader, much more complex situation. Both of these groups are deeply entrenched in the region, and although Boko Haram might be gaining ground now, it doesn't mean the war is over. This shift has the potential to alter the strategy, not only for these militant groups, but also for the Nigerian military. If Boko Haram becomes a stronger force again, the military may have to adjust their counterterrorism strategies to deal with them head-on. We could see a reallocation of resources and more focused military operations in areas where Boko Haram is gaining strength. It's not just about pushing back one group, it's about managing multiple fronts. That's a huge logistical and strategic challenge. On top of that, there's also the psychological effect this has on the region. Boko Haram, despite its notorious history, may be viewed as a more legitimate force by some people, particularly those living in areas where they've been operating for a while. If they're winning battles, that can have a significant impact on the local population's perception. People may feel trapped, not knowing which group to align with. Or worse, they might feel like there's no way out. This uncertainty can have far-reaching consequences, not just on the civilian population, but also on the stability of the entire region. Now think about the broader implications. Nigeria isn't just fighting Boko Haram and ISWAP. The battle is against the ideologies they represent. These groups thrive on chaos, and the more chaos they can create, the stronger they get. So while we're focused on who's winning or losing a battle in the Lake Chad Basin, we need to zoom out and understand that the real victory would come from tackling the reasons these groups continue to have such power. And that means addressing things like poverty, lack of education, corruption, and of course, poor governance. We also have to ask, what's next for ISWAP now that Boko Haram is claiming some victories? They won't just sit back and let this slide. ISWAP, despite any current setbacks, still has a lot of firepower and international backing. Their access to resources, including funding from global jihadist networks, still makes them a formidable force. So it's likely that ISWAP will try to regroup, form new alliances, or go underground for a while until they can reassert themselves. This kind of back and forth battle has happened before in history, not just in Africa, but in many parts of the world. These conflicts are cyclical, with groups gaining and losing powers over time. The key to understanding this is knowing that the fight is not just military, it's ideological, political, and social. If we fail to address the root causes of radicalization and extremism, we'll keep seeing these groups rise and fall in power. So, what should we focus on next? If you're in the region, staying informed about what's happening is crucial. If you're following this from outside Nigeria, Supporting efforts that focus on humanitarian aid, education, and rebuilding communities is just as important. There's no easy answer, but every bit of awareness helps. As we watch this story unfold, there are a few things to keep an eye on. First, how the Nigerian military responds to Boko Haram's claims of victory. Are they going to shift focus back to Boko Haram, or will they continue focusing on ISWAP? Second, how the international community will react to this. Nigeria can't handle this on its own, and regional cooperation will be critical in keeping the pressure on these militant groups. Finally, let's not forget the people living in the affected areas. They are the ones who are truly paying the price for this ongoing conflict. I know this topic can be heavy, but it's important to stay informed and engaged with what's going on. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about Boko Haram claiming victory over ISWAP? Do you think this will escalate the conflict even more? Or do you see it as a sign that the militants are weakening? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future updates. I'll keep you informed on all the latest news as it happens. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.